which my patrons seem to like. Okay, enough of that. I have a pretty wacky solved case for you this evening. It is the case of Jill Cahill, and we're just going to jump right into it. Fred and Joan Russell had 3 children, David, Debbie, and Jill. They grew up in the city of Tonawanda. Jill got her associate's degree in art from SUNY Canton, and then she attended Plattsburgh State College. In 1986, she was working as a flight attendant, which I think would be a cool job, except I don't like to fly that much, for US Air, when she met a man named James, but he went by Jeff Cahill. The two dated and then married the next year. Unfortunately, there were some signs that Jeff's mother, Patty, did not approve of this relationship. The biggest one being she did not come to their wedding. But the relationship started to improve after the Cahills had their son Tim the next year. A daughter named Mary followed 2 years later. Jeff and Jill Cahill agreed that she would stop working to become a full-time mother. By this time, Jeff had quit his job as a stockbroker, and he was working for himself as a handyman and carpenter, can't talk today, around Skinettles. Jeff was not a good businessman. He did work well for what others charged, but he wasn't particularly diligent in collecting what he owed, which can cause some issues. So the ensuing money problems really did cause trouble in their marriage, even though Jill and her friend had started a business designing and arranging perennial gardens called the Flower Fairies. Jill Cahill called her husband Jeff the Prince, and it was a nickname that her family quickly adopted for Jeff. He would play with the kids in the yard, he would take the kids to the playground, he let the girls do girly things together, said Jill's sister Debbie. He was just really laid back and a happy-go-lucky guy. Back then, according to the family, there was no indication of the prince's dark side. This is the side that surfaced when the Cahill marriage went awry. It wasn't until 1997 that Jill really started talking about her problems, at least to her sister. Debbie said there was just no money to do anything. She was trying to get Jeff to get a regular 9-to-5 with benefits. On April 9th, 1998, a separation agreement was signed by both parties, and Jill took the children to Tonawanda for Easter 2 weeks later. She thought it was going to be a good cooling down period for the family, and she was excited because she'd made a decision and she was moving on with her life. The past few months had been extremely stressful, and she looked forward to spending time with her family for a while. When she was with them, she didn't have to be 1st, 1998. It was one night after Jill had returned from the visit with her family, and she and Jeff had gotten into an argument. It spun out quickly into a very heated disagreement, and Jill started to try to get away from Jeff. But he grabbed an aluminum baseball bat and began striking her from behind. As Jill fought for her life, she cried out to her two very frightened children to get help because their father was trying to kill her. Jeff dragged Jill into the kitchen and hit her several more times. She was savagely beaten. She suffered at least 4 life-threatening blows to her head. She had bruising on the right side of her neck and her left breast. The skin was scraped on her right shoulder, elbow, forearm, and wrist. Her right hand was badly swollen and bruised, and the nail on her middle right finger had come off. She had a smaller wound on her left thumb, and her right arm was broken. All of this happened in front of their children. After a while, Jeff decided to call his parents. Not 911, but his parents. His parents, brother, and a family friend who was a doctor arrived at their house. They found Jill covered in blood, writhing in pain and moaning incoherently. It was at this point they convinced Jeff to call an ambulance. Jeff lied and told the police that they'd had an argument and Jill had started stabbing him with a kitchen knife. So he defended himself with the baseball bat, slamming it directly into her head. He showed them, and I'm gonna quote this, cuts and scratches on his body. The Onondaga, I know I'm messing his names up, County Family Court placed the Cahill children in the custody of Jill's parents and then issued a protective order against Jeff. This barred him from entering University Hospital, where Jill was hospitalized. He was also not allowed any contact with his children. Jeff Cahill was charged with assault, and he posted a cash bail of $100,000 within 24 hours. And he would await trial on these charges. Prosecutor William Fitzpatrick at the time said there was no reason to believe Jeff was a threat to Jill. He had been examined by psychiatrists, and they determined that he was not dangerous. As a precaution, the judge had set a substantial bail and issued the order of protection. Dr. Gerald Rozigowitz said, Jill arrived in a horrendous state. It had taken himself and his team an entire hour to sew up the cuts and staunch the bleeding before he could even begin to operate on her. She had needed 10 pints of blood, which is her entire blood volume. It took hours of surgery to remove the large blood clot on her brain. But she lived. It had been 6 long months, and Jill had been hospitalized the whole time with extensive damages to her body. Every time that she had a setback, it was said that she fought valiantly to get better. She'd had that initial emergency surgery and the surgery to remove the blood clot on her brain. But throughout her hospitalization, she had several subsequent procedures. 15 that I could find. Most of them were to reduce the swelling in her brain or to fight life-threatening infections. But Jill held on to life, she inched her way toward a full recovery. She started rehab, and her doctors were pleased with her progress and hopeful that she would have a meaningful life again. She had been able to recall the names of her 2 children, and she had regained some ability to speak. The restraining order was in place, and Jeff's photo was posted at every nurse's station in the hospital. But Jeff had decided he wasn't done with Jill yet. He started to research the internet for cyanide, and he eventually figured out a way to order it that he could be alone to receive it without tracing it back to him. Or so he thought. He created a fake letterhead for General Super Plating, a company that uses cyanide in electroplating. And then for just $30, he ordered the cyanide from Bryant Laboratories of Berkeley, California. He had the package shipped overnight by UPS. Tracking the delivery, he followed the UPS truck on its rounds and then moved to intercept it and obtain his package. He approached the driver, identified himself as a General Superblading employee, and obtained the package. The UPS driver thought this incident was pretty suspicious, so he noted down the license plate and placed it in his report. Jeff created a disguise and started casing out the hospital. He created a fake hospital ID, got a wig, boots, glasses, and a uniform which sort of resembled the uniform worn by hospital maintenance workers. He, 1 week before the 27th, dons his uniform. October 27th, I said that. Dons his uniform of a blue shirt and white pants, wigs, glasses, boots, ID, and enters the hospital. A nurse's assistant sees him dressed as a janitor and questions him about his presence in Jill's room, and he says that he just came to say hi, and he skedaddles himself right on out of the hospital. That leads us to October 27th. Jeff gets his disguise back on, and after visiting hours, attempts to sneak into Jill's hospital room. He even has a mop. He manages to seize an opportunity. He sneaks into her room and forces the potassium cyanide down her throat. Hospital employees had noticed a man lurking in the hallway. He had on a uniform that resembled the janitor's, but his boots were outdoor boots, and it was pretty clear he was wearing a wig. So they became suspicious because he just didn't look right. But none of them had seen him go into Jill's room. A woman named Cynthia Jones said it looked like he was having a bad hair day. His wardrobe made him stand out instead of blend in. He was wearing the wrong boots, and his shirt and pants were close to the type worn by hospital staff, but they were not exactly the right color. A nurse named Tyrone Hunter said, "I noticed that the hospital identification card that he wore was nothing more than a slip of paper inside a plastic holder." I and other hospital workers questioned one another about who the strange was arrested. He was held without bail and charged with Jill Cahill's murder. Judge William Burke of the Onondaga County ruled that prosecutors could try the two cases together, so the assault charges and the murder charges. Prosecutors decided to seek the death penalty. Jeff pled not guilty, and his attorney Richard Priest opposed the consolidation of the two cases. He argued that evidence of the assault would jeopardize Mr. Cahill's right to a fair trial in his murder case. We'll talk about that in a minute. Officers testified that they found a partially burned wig and an open bottle of potassium cyanide in Jeff Cahill's house on October 31st. Detectives found computer data that showed that Jeff had made numerous inquiries on the internet about how cyanide worked and how it could be obtained. Jeff later confessed that he had attacked Jill while she was unarmed, and his wounds were self-inflicted in the first attack on her. Grisly photos of Jill's wounds were shown, and photos of her after the attack in the hospital were shown to the jury. Prosecutor Fitzpatrick made a powerful demonstration where he picked up the dented metal bat and he said, "Did he snap during the first blow?" And he slammed the bat as hard as he could down on his hand. "Did he snap during the second blow?" He smacked it down 7 times in all. And he said to the jury, "Did he snap during the multiple blows to her head?" It was said the jury flinched with each blow, and it was incredibly dramatic. Half of them were in tears and just shell-shocked, but Jeff sat cold with no emotion on his face. The defense admitted that Jeff Cahill had disguised himself as a janitor, and he'd killed his semi-comatose wife with stolen cyanide. The defense attorney said he would present character witnesses who would testify that there was something to save in this man, that there was still some good left in him. John Cahill, brother of Jeff Cahill, told jurors his brother loved his children, enjoyed fishing and playing soccer, and he was raised as a devout Catholic. His other brother Mark testified about the night he had gone to the house to find Jill beaten. The defense attorney, Gary Miles, called only Dr. William Allen in an attempt to explain Jeff's state of mind shortly after the baseball bat assault. Dr. Allen, the childhood friend and family doctor of Jeff Cahill, said he'd prescribed sleeping pills to help Mr. Cahill with insomnia and anxiety related to the stress of their failing marriage. Gary Miles, the defense attorney, gave a 15-minute closing and urged the jurors not to rush their judgment, saying the facts warranted a lesser verdict of second-degree murder. A state Supreme Court jury convicted Jeff Cahill, reaching their verdict of guilty of first-degree murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon after 3 hours of deliberating. They sentenced him to death. He exhibited no reaction as the verdict was read. The prosecutors obtained the death penalty, but the State Court of Appeals overturned the sentence. The Court of Appeals reversed both convictions and reduced the crime to second degree. They set aside the death sentence and returned the case to the trial court for resentencing. Jeff Cahill was resentenced for second-degree murder and then sentenced to 37.5 years to life in prison. Okay. I can't even with this case. First of all, there was no reason. Like, why did you do